right, well, good morning, everybody. So as I said, we're hopefully going to find a way today to kind of break up some memories of things and kind of try to approach everything that we're doing from a fresh state, being really present in the moment and responding to what's happening right now rather than our memories. And also, probably for some of us, not just our memories, but also not our idea of what it should be. I know I struggle with that sometimes. So today what we're talking about is samskaras. You've probably heard this word before. These are the repeated patterns. Sometimes it's defined as latent impressions. So it's kind of the residue of all the experiences that we've had that leave sort of impressions, or what they call like a veil, or a taint seems like the wrong word because it seems like that means it's impure, and I guess that is kind of true, but it's coloration of our basically putting a lens where a pane of glass should be. It changes our perspective a little bit. And the more we practice certain actions, the more those leave deeper impressions on our memory or on our imagining of the moment. So what we're going to try to do is come fully present, kind of let go of all of our past experiences, let go of what we think it should be or the ideal or what the future might be, and try to experience everything from the present. In the Yoga Sutras, this is from book 4, which is, there's some crazy stuff in the later parts of the Yoga Sutras, but I just want to read to you a couple of these sutras. One is 418, patterns of consciousness are always known by pure awareness, their ultimate unchanging witness. So really, because these impressions kind of make it seem like, well, obviously you would do this because this always happens when you do it, right? So we have these, this is just the way it's done kind of things, and some of that's really subliminal. And the only way for us to recognize that we're operating from those patterns instead of from present moment is to be really aware. So again, we're calling in that saksi, that witnessing consciousness. And then later it says, once it is stilled, consciousness comes to resemble the unchanging awareness and can observe itself. So not only does being really aware and alert and coming from that witnessing consciousness help us to see the patterns so that we can rise above them or transcend them, but it also allows us to watch our own thoughts and to watch our own consciousness. And once we can do that, it says, consciousness can be colored by both awareness and the phenomenal world. So this is all the stuff that's changing our mind and the outside world, thereby fulfilling all its purposes. So the purpose of this witnessing consciousness is to help us to see our own self, as well as remaining in that stillness, so that no matter what's happening around us, we're kind of always in that rootedness. Is we're going to find some poses that we maybe do on a regular basis that we know, that are familiar to us, but approach them from a different angle. And we might also move in or out of these poses, maybe in a different way than we normally do. So to begin with, we're just going to come into our regular seated shape. This is what we always do, right? This is the way of class. This is one of our samskaras, our patterns. And once we're seated, we're going to see if we can cultivate that witnessing consciousness or make connection to that witnessing consciousness. Watching the breath, watching the alignment of the spine, and once we kind of are in this familiar shape, we kind of know how to sit tall, we kind of know how to open the heart. Just sit for a few rounds of breath in that observation. Feel the stillness and steadiness. And then also kind of open the senses for maybe movements within the body, like the breath or the heartbeat, movements or fluctuations in the outside world, maybe sounds or other movements of the world around you. And then just take 2 or 3 more breaths in this stillness, observing. And from that stillness place, we're going to kind of break up our patterns a little bit. So we're going to find some wild movement. I was saying on Monday, aren't you glad we're not in the studio so we can't see each other? But here we are. So just kind of shake out your hands, shake out your arms, find some movement, maybe turn the head slowly, twist and untwist the body, maybe find some cat-cow. It doesn't have to look like anything. There was a movie, I can't remember what it was, where a woman was trying to come up with a series of movements that no one had ever done before. A completely original set of movements. So we're kind of finding that, just getting wild with it, and then once you feel kind of shaken out, just kind of pause again. Now feel or observe from that stillness place the sort of remnants or the echo of that movement, and how everything is alive, like we can kind of feel each part of ourselves kind of awaken that awareness by kind of shaking up or breaking up those patterns. So we're going to try to move like that in some ways throughout our class today. Let's find a typical, everyday we do it, cat-cow. Inhale and lifting the heart. Chest is forward, chin is lifted. Exhale, chin to chest, back of the heart opens. Flow with your breath, however fast or slow. We can almost do this without thinking about it. We're so used to this movement and pairing it with the breath in this way. Next time you come into that little cat shape with chin to chest, pause, let a few breaths flow through your body. So we're already starting to break the pattern a little bit. Then take another inhale here, and then as you exhale, chest forward and chin lifts. So it's the same motion, same flow of breath, just in a different order. And notice how much harder this is to maintain the pattern. We almost subconsciously slip back into the way we always do it. I've been saying that the challenge for this week is to try to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, or write with your non-dominant hand. And then pausing, kind of coming back to that centered place again. Again, feel the aliveness, feel the awareness that comes when we kind of break it up a little bit. You have to pay a little bit closer attention. So let's bring the knees to straighten in front of us. Take a couple little backs of the leg stretches. So again, we know how to sit tall. We've got that going on. As we fall forward to kind of stretch out the backs of the legs, maybe just take a little bit of like rising and falling or non-stillness. Kind of staying in motion. Maybe we add a little bit of spinal movement. Just taking a few movements that allow the backs of the legs to start to feel stretched out a little bit. Bring awareness to this. Maybe see if we can again find some flow of original movement. Something we've never done before, something we don't normally do. 3 more breaths to just experiment and open. And then we'll start to swing the legs behind the body so we can come into tabletop. We did our cat and cow, forward and back. We kind of broke up that pattern a little bit. We're going to try to find this in a new way with some balance with it. So one leg's going to come back. I'm going to start with my right leg back and left arm forward. And then notice once you're stretched out in this shape, there's balance. Just kind of micro cat-cow a little bit, just kind of feel, and then see if you can come totally flat. Hold, kind of feel our bracing of this. We kind of get used to where we need to balance. Then on an exhale, elbow and knee underneath the body. Hold here for a few rounds of breath. So breath is still flowing softly. Then let's find our typical pattern. On an inhale, stretch long. Exhale, coil under. Inhale long, exhale coil. And the next time your elbow and knee come under the body, take a little pause. Take an inhale here and then exhale and stretch out. I could barely do that. I almost lost it on the very first round. So we're just reversing again. And then when you're ready, come back to all fours, kind of shake out the body for a second. Maybe stretch out and kind of swap out the hands and knees. And then we'll find that same movement on the other side. So left leg comes back, right arm reaches forward. Micro cat-cow here. Just kind of find your flat back, pausing. This is the new pattern. We're holding here, nothing's changing. Then on an exhale, coil under, elbow and knee. Hold
hold here for a few breaths, just kind of get used to this shape. Then let's start with our reversed pattern, which will be really hard. Take a big breath in here, and then exhale, stretch long. Inhale, coil under, exhale, stretch long. And again, when you coil under next time, pause and take an exhale here, then inhale and reach out. Coil as you exhale. One more. And come back to all fours. Shake out the hands. Wiggle out the feet if you need to. Then we're back in our tabletop. We're going to walk both hands over to the right side of the mat. This is again a stretch that we do pretty often. We're going to pull away the left shoulder and hip from one another and kind of squeeze right shoulder and right hip together. We can experiment a little bit here if you like. You might lean your weight into your hands and your right knee and just kind of stretch your left leg out to one side. Maybe find a little hip movement forward and back. And then pausing here on your right hand, we're going to roll the left arm up and open. So we have a little slide open. Now if you're on both knees still, that's okay too. And find a little bit of motion here. So we're kind of balancing, leaning still to that right side of the mat. Maybe find cat-cow or stretching forward and back or side to side. Hips might move, head and neck might move. If that left leg is extended long, we're going to bring that knee back next to the right and come back up to standing on the knees. And just from here, just kind of swing your arms from side to side as you rise and fall. And then we'll find something like a camel pose. So the heart's going to lift, the chin's going to lift, hands might reach up, they might be on hips, they might press into the low back, or even reach for the heels. Just kind of pause here, maybe find a little side-to-side motion as if you're kind of spreading the sunshine from your smile in a little bit broader spectrum. And come back to a neutral spine. And we're going to lean over into that left hand. Right arm is kind of up. You could extend that right leg out to the side if you like. And just find some, again, movement. I realize I'm not giving a lot of specific instructions on how to move, partly because I just want you to be present and feel what's possible. That right leg might stay extended if it's already out as your right hand comes next to your left, and we're squeezing that left shoulder and left hip together as the right moves away from the hip. Opening up that side body, just kind of feeling that shape. If your knee is extended, still bring both knees back side by side and start to walk your body forward back into tabletop. Take a nice big inhale and a cat arch, and then exhale, sink your hips back towards your heels, find child's pose. Just take a moment here to reconnect with that witnessing in stillness and kind of quiet. Notice what's moving within you. Notice what's moving around you. Come back to that stillness. Notice if there are any lingering energetic sensations from some of those movements. Maybe there's even lingering physical sensations from those movements, new stretches. And we'll inhale to come back into tabletop, tucking both sets of toes, and coming into our first down dog. Now we just did a little bit of stretching in the backs of the legs, so feel free to kind of continue waking those parts of your body up. And again, feel free to shift hips side to side, kind of twist or micro cat-cow in this shape. Kind of find a little bit of movement to break up the static down dog that we already know so well. Make it new, make it novel, keep yourself aware. Then find stillness for just a few breaths, and we're going to shift weight into the left foot and lift the right. So the right leg might be high, it might be low. We might bend the knee or find movement. We can also just statically hold.
So just, again, whatever brings you into a sense of deep awareness of the present, take that option. And then that right foot's going to eventually step forward towards the top of the mat. So we've got a lunge shape. You can choose whether or not you want to keep that back knee lifted or drop it down to the earth. Either one is fine. And then find that upward sort of arching heart forward shape, whether you're pressing into the floor or the thigh or hands are raised or into the waist. Find some way to embody that openness again. Perhaps once we find a place for our hands, we're again kind of twisting or kind of finding a little balance in the hips or lengthening, maybe micro cat-cow through the shoulders. Find some way to stay alert and aware and in motion in this shape for 2 more breaths. On that second exhale, you come to framing the toes on that right side again. We're going to walk both hands inside that right foot. Right foot's going to swing out a little wider to the right. Now we're in more of a dragon shape. Maybe we lift and lower that back knee. Maybe we start to rock forward and back. Maybe we cat-cow through the spine. Maybe we twist. Find some way, again, to experiment with what's possible. Which ways can you move in this shape? Which ones feel good? Which ones are like, don't do that? Just kind of be with it. And then pause in some form of this dragon pose, maybe hands, maybe elbows, wherever we are with it. Maybe back knee is lifted and it's active, maybe it's down and it's passive, but take about 2 to 3 more breaths, choosing something that's steady. Come back to that witnessing, notice lingering sensations. Wonderful. Start to walk your hands back a little bit toward the left knee. And just kind of pull the right leg straight for a moment. Keep the chest kind of lifted and lengthened. Keep that right leg lengthened. Maybe pull the toes back, a little stretch in the feet, turn the ankle. Feeling each sensation with detail and subtlety. Stepping back forward, we're going to bring both hands outside of that right foot again. Lifting that back knee, we're going to drop the left heel in towards the center of the mat and press our way up. So heart's going to shift towards that left side of the mat. Open your arms wide. Just maybe make a couple of up and down circles with your arms rising and lowering. And bring your arms out to shoulder height. Dip into that right knee and settle into warrior 2. Again, maybe find a little bit of shifting of the hips left and right. Maybe turning the palms up and down, kind of rotating the shoulders and wrists. Find some way to stay really present and in motion here. If we're always moving, we have to kind of stay paying attention to what's still and what's moving. What have we already moved? What have we not moved? Then find a stillness for just 2 or 3 more breaths. Good. Let your hands come back down to frame the right toes. Pivot on that back foot and step back to downward facing dog. And then finally that left leg is going to lift at some point. So maybe high, maybe low, maybe stillness, maybe motion. Letting you decide how to stay present, how to bring novelty to a familiar shape. Maybe you're lifting and lowering, all kinds of choices that we can make here. And eventually, again, that left foot will step between the hands again to find a lunge, high or low lunge here. And we're going to find that lifted heart again, lots of options there. Pressing against the floor, the thigh, raising arms, interlacing, and then find a little bit of motion. Where can something new be created here? In what ways are we capable of moving? What are the parameters of this shape for our body today and this moment?
Find a stillness for just a couple of breaths. Good. Let's find some variations on our dragon pose. So bringing left hand inside the left foot. And again, finding some motion. See, the back leg lifts and lowers. Notice what's possible. What are the edges of what movements can be made? Staying roughly in this same shape. And again, we'll find a stillness for just a few rounds of breath, committing. Hands will walk back again towards the right knee this time. Keep the torso lifted and lengthen just as we lift, or rather lengthen through the leg. If you can lift your leg too, awesome for you. And just stay again committed. Just feel where there is sensation. What micro adjustments can be made here to be a little longer, either through that left leg or through the torso. Do you feel open to the heart or not so open? No instruction there, just notice. Fully present. Good. As we walk forward, let's come back to framing the left toes and right toes tucking underneath the body, nice and slow. Let's move back to downward facing dog. So we've got a little challenge move that we're going to try to take here. From our downward facing dog, we're going to lift that right leg again. And again, it could be high or low. Press into your hands, kind of lift. See if you can get your knee or your hip or your toes just a little bit higher. And then we're going to slowly, with some serious commitment to staying alert, see if we can bend at the left knee and bring the left knee down to the mat. Good. Once that's down, we might roll the right arm open and take a little half moon shape. We might drop that right foot to the floor and take some side angle. We might find some motion between those two things. With your left hand and left knee on the floor, explore. Find some movement. Where can your other limbs go? What directions can your spine move in this shape? It's awkward, it's silly, but just try it. Good. 2 more breaths for movement or stillness. And find your way back to that right leg lifted and see if we can tuck the left toes and press our way back into 3 limbs. Give yourself a little challenge, then bring the right foot down to the floor. 1 more breath in here, and then we'll drop into a brief child's pose. Take a little bit of that internal searching. As you come down, feel again for echoes in the body. Is there different movements than we normally make? How are they kind of breaking up our patterns? How has it shifted what you expect? Have you been able to let go of certain memories of a pose or certain expectations of how it looks or how we flow in or out of it? Good. Let's rise back up again, finding downward facing dog. Let's find some of that motion on the other side. So once we're established and stable here, left leg will rise. And movement or stillness. And then nice and slow, bringing as much mindfulness as we can, bending into that right knee and letting it come down to the floor as the left leg stays lifted. Take your time. Find your steadiness. Then once you're down, right hand and right knee, left arm might rise. And again, find some motion. Where can you move? What spinal movements can happen while we're still balanced? What directions can we send our legs or arms or toes or neck or gaze? Feel all those possibilities. Good.
And again, we'll bring the left hand back down, tucking the right toes. Let's see if we can rise back up into our 3-limb downward facing dog. And then all 4 on the floor. Take another big breath in. And we'll drop the knees again. Take a moment in child's pose. So in this shape again, just kind of pause, feel for any echoes. Feel for any places that have a new muscle that was awakened in this moment. Any joints that have a strong sensation happening. Then let's walk hands over to the left side of the mat, finding that same side stretch here. Walking back through center and over to the right. Same thing, big side stretch. How can you move a little bit here, even in this sort of compressed shape? Coming back to center. We're going to transition from child's pose just briefly through down dog before stepping forward to find a forward fold at the top of the mat. So, as we've mentioned in other classes, the body is always in the moment. Unlike the mind or the heart, which can remember and dream, to imagine, the body is always in this moment. Its primary focus is keeping you alive in this moment. So let that be represented by your strong legs, but let the head and the heart just be kind of like loose and floppy. Let the back of the neck get soft. Arms can just be limp, whether they're hanging or touching the floor or wherever they are. Just be loose and relaxed and passive through the upper body completely. Notice that this position kind of has us looking behind us, this passiveness. So whatever impressions that have come before are going to direct our motion. On an inhale, find an alert spine, flat back. Notice that we're at least now looking straight down. We might even be looking slightly forward in this flat back. And so as we activate our head and our heart, as we remain more aware, as we come into that saksi, witnessing presence, we start to become more present and more future-oriented. Exhale, become passive again, soften. As you hang, again, notice the direction of your gaze, looking more behind. So being directed by what's behind us rather than this current moment. Inhale, find your flat back again. Notice again how your gaze shifts as you rise into that flat back. Notice if there's any curve to the spine, so you can kind of flatten and lengthen. Then on an inhale, swing all the way up to standing, maybe arms reach up, and as you exhale, kind of looseness in the body. Again, just find some of that original motion. Shake up, break up the patterns. Feel how good it feels to unlock the legs a little bit after standing in that fold for a long time. And once we've kind of broken everything up, just kind of pause again here. When we have our steadiness, when we regularly come into a sense of both ease and alertness, which is what meditation offers, our Sutra, easy seat, and our standing poses like this offers these opportunities for stillness and steadiness, ease in the body, alertness in the mind. The more we practice this, the easier it is to stay in that place even when the world starts churning around us. So shift your weight into your left foot, and notice what happens when we pull the right off the floor. You might shake it out a little bit again, but feel how we don't have nearly as much steadiness now. Something's happened. And let's try to lean a little bit. Maybe we can kind of lean forward, back, to the side. Just kind of shift the weight of your torso around. Now maybe keep your foot low enough that if you need to touch down, keep your balance, go for it. But notice and feel all that shifting in your ankle. Good. Come back to center with your torso and step towards the back of the mat. Let's find a triangle pose here. So inhale, reach up and open. Left hand is out front. Reach forward and turn. So the heart is open. See if you can, in this more challenging shape, find that same sense of steadiness and stillness that we had standing.
Let's sink into that left knee and come into warrior two as well, since we skipped that the last time. Heart is open. Steady through the legs and feet. After all that wiggling and experimental motion, how does it feel to come back with a new alertness to some of these familiar static poses? Good. Let's bring ourselves forward, stepping forward back into our fold. Let's take a few breaths in our hang, soft and passive. On an inhale, take a few breaths in that flat back. Again, notice the shifted gaze from the past into at least the present, if not a little ways into the future. Exhale, soften, come back into that passive. This is us just being controlled by samskaras, by the patterns of our lives, just being swept along by these habits. Then inhale, come back into that intention, so we're building patterns on purpose now. Hinge your way all the way up. And again, kind of loosen and shake everything out. Breaking up all the stagnant energy, all the status quo within. And then let's find our steadiness, and this time we'll shift weight into the right foot. Left is going to come off the mat a little bit. And again, just what doesn't have to be any particular thing, but just kind of move the weight of your torso. Maybe your arms kind of move with. If anybody were watching us through the windows right now, they'd be like, whatever drugs those people are on. But feel how this trying to bring new movement in, and also the weight on one foot, makes you hyper alert. You're watching every sensation, looking for clues. And find a moment here and step back with that left foot. And let's find our triangle on this side. We'll skip warrior since we did that on the other side. So arms coming out again, looking over that right hand. Reaching and finding triangle. So letting yourself explore whether or not you can come into that same sense of stillness and stability as we had when we were standing. Having that opportunity to observe, to take a moment, to pause, reflecting on the patterns of our lives and which ones are supporting us, which ones are hindering us. So we can make a wise and intentional choice. Good. From here, we might bend into that knee a little bit and start to pivot on the back feet. We'll step forward again into our fold, this time rather than rising and falling. We'll start to bring ourselves down to the sitting bones on the mat again. So just bending at the knees, catching yourself as you come into a seat. Legs can be crossed or feet might be together with the knees open. I'm just finding a seat here again, kind of shifting weight from side to side, shifting the weight of the torso around a little bit, finding a little bit of motion, and then pause. Observe the different level of balance than when we were standing, especially standing on one foot. There's so much of our body weight close to the ground. Offers us that opportunity for stillness and observation. Look both for the motion within your body and around you in the world. Let your hands start to reach up as you inhale next. Just kind of lengthen your spine. Take a couple of breaths with this shape in the body, open, tall. And on an exhale, bring your hands behind your back and bring the soles of the feet to the floor. So whether you're crossed or in that bound angle shape, and just slowly kind of find your way side to side. And I'm going to try not to bring any expectations into what we're going to do. We'll find that when your knees are moving from side to side, kind of move slowly enough to take as much into that side as you can. Maybe the spine and the hips start to also kind of turn with the knees. And wherever you are right now, pause and lean to that side, find a deer twist. So start to walk your hands around the body. They can stay long through the arms, or you can bring your elbows to bend, maybe coming down to the belly. You can also shift your weight forward and back or side to side, kind of press into the right hand, press into the left hand. See how these little subtle shifts change the sensation. Maybe head looks over one shoulder and then slowly sweeps to
side, looking over the other shoulder. Maybe chin tucks to chest and then lifts away from the heart. Just find a little bit of novelty. Maybe the toes just wiggle, or a new position is found for the hips. Micro cat-cow, that low back. And once you've done all those things, find a place to pause for about 3 to 4 more breaths. Observing. Slowly, when the time comes, start to untwist the body. Coming back to our original position, hands behind. And again, knees just kind of moving side to side. And we know what's coming, so we gotta balance ourselves out. So find your way into your deer twist on the other side. But see if you can take a slightly different approach this time, not just recreating what happened on the other side, but experimenting with the range of motion that is available to you, from rising to falling, little spinal twisting motions, pressing into each hand and turning the gaze. Maybe try to do something almost intentionally different than the other side. And then again, find a pausing place after you found all that experimental movement. Find a pause and observe, both within and all around you. The idea here is however we do anything is kind of how we do everything. And if we can stay present and stay experimental and stay open, that brings a lot more possibility into our lives. Nice and slow, start to walk yourself back forward again. And we're going to start to come down to the spine for a few more kinds of motions. So just rolling down, come into a neutral place. The feet might pick up off the floor to find some motion, especially since we just came out of those twists. It might feel nice to kind of take a little half supine twist to each side for a moment. Knees might come in and then away. So what we're going to do next is a little bit of gentle core engagement to keep us awake. What we're trying to do with this is sort of wake up the essence or the core of our being so that we can remain in that witnessing state even when we're in motion, even when we're trying to do something we normally do, to keep that level of awareness. So with the sacrum on the mat, arms can be anywhere that's comfortable. We're going to extend the right leg long, so heels on the mat, and left knee is just going to come in gently towards the chest. We might bring hands to draw that closer in, maybe hands just stay rested. Kind of pulling that left knee in. And then slowly let that left knee fall open to the left. Just kind of make a little motion there, kind of reaching that knee out and up and down, kind of make just a little hip motion, and then draw it back to center. From here, we're just gonna lift the right heel off the floor, so leg is still extended, and just kind of pull that right heel away from your hip, kind of pull your left knee a little closer to your chest, feel how that kind of shifts your sacrum, and then switch sides. So start to bring the right knee in towards the body, left heel is reaching away.
Maybe your hips shift a little to that right side. Maybe you can feel a little bit of that micro side bending. Switch again. Switch one more time. Then bring both knees in towards the chest. Maybe again finding some motion. Now extend both legs long but up towards the ceiling. So we kind of have that staff pose in a different, with the floor in a different shape. So heels are reaching for the ceiling. As you exhale, start to bring your heels away from your chest and down towards the floor. So we're kind of just angling them down. And then as you inhale, bring them back in towards your chest. So however low you get to the floor is kind of up to you. Just enough to feel awakened through the core. Two more breaths. Then bending at the knees, again, let the knees come softly in towards the chest, maybe finding some motion. Then soles of the feet can come to the mat. And we're just gonna take a few motions that allow the body to find a little bit more extreme cat and cow before we find our way into settling into stillness. So preparing for a bridge pose. We're gonna keep the soles of the feet planted for a moment and tilt just the pelvis. So the pelvis is gonna start to, the bottom of the pelvis is gonna point upwards. So tailbone is starting to point up. Feel the mid-back and bottom of the ribs pressing into the floor. And with this same shape, kind of pause or freeze your pelvis in this position. Now press into the feet. And feel how the bottom of the shoulder blades is still kind of in the mat. We almost have like a concave shape still in the body. Notice which parts of your body are engaged to hold this position, especially that pelvic tilt. And let everything else be soft. Hands and face, breath. Exhale, start to come slowly back down to the floor. Neutralize, maybe knees fall side to side again. Then let the tailbone point straight down. So now feel the bottom of the ribs and the top of the pelvis scooting away from the floor in that little arch. And now with this shape, kind of feel how the chest is coming up towards the chin. Now press into the mat again and lift in this shape. So it's the same motion, just a different position of the spine. Notice how just bringing a little novelty makes you aware of so many things. Like feel how close the heart and the chin are to one another. Feel how far away the pelvis is from the floor. Notice your breath, notice your level of effort. On an exhale, come slowly back down. Knees can come in towards the chest, maybe the head lifts. We're finding a little cannonball shape, being mindful of reversing the direction of the spine. We're going to try each one of those motions from bridge pose one more time, just to kind of bring a little bit more awareness to the difference. So allow the feet to come back to the floor. Tailbone points up. Lift by pressing into the feet. Bottom of the sacrum is lifted high, but the top of the sacrum is kind of still pointing down towards the earth. Feel the distance between the heart and the chin. Feel how the hips might be lower to the floor. Which muscles are engaged? Where is their awareness? Where is their sensation? Exhale, come back down. And again, tailbone pointing down now. Feel the mid-back rise from the floor. We already have a little bit more lift of chin, or heart towards the chin. Now press into the mat again and feel the difference. Feel the height. Feel the shape of the spine and the belly. Feel which muscles are engaged, what sensations might feel different. Another breath or so. And allow your body to come back to the floor, taking any neutralizing motions. And then we'll start to spread long on the mat, legs extended, heels coming down towards the bottom. We're going to reach the arms overhead on the floor, just to come into a long shape, fingertips to toes. See if you can soften in that shape, letting go. We're going to find these little crescent moon shapes in the body, so lean your arms and legs to one side, pelvis staying exactly rooted where it is, trying to keep both sides of the pelvis even on the floor. And just take about 3 to 5 breaths on this side. Coming back to center, we might take one breath in the middle before finding our crescent moon shape on the other side, keeping the pelvis anchored, walking arms and legs and head over to the other side now. Again, a reminder that the head and the heart can roam in time and space, but the body is always present. Come back to center when the body gives you the signal that it's time. Taking any last stretches or neutralizing motions before finding your rest pose. And in the spirit of kind of breaking up patterns and things, feel free to take a slightly different variation of your rest pose. Side lying shape, legs up the wall. Finding a way again to keep things fresh, aware and alert. We remind ourselves here that the only way for us to recognize these patterns of consciousness, these samskaras, that inform so much of our actions is to take those pauses, take a moment to self-reflect, engaging in that svadhyaya practice of self-awareness, and to tap into that sakshi, that pure witnessing consciousness, the ultimate unchanging witness. And once we still our consciousness comes to resemble that sakshi well enough that we can kind of reflect upon our own thoughts, we can reflect upon our own feelings, and reflect upon our own awareness. And then consciousness can be perceiving both the phenomenal world and aware of itself, which it says is the fulfilling of the purpose of that ultimate consciousness. To be both present in the world, in the flowing changes, and also present with the self.
Remain in stillness. Continue to observe. As we still the body as much as we can, as we allow it to be supported, we support our ability to remain aware. Come into that pure perceiving awareness that can observe not only the phenomenon of the world, but observe our own consciousness. And as we are able to be aware of both of those things simultaneously, we will have achieved the very purpose of our awareness. Just taking this time to practice that skill, work toward that outcome. From that steady, silent place, feel the heartbeat, the aliveness moving through the body, any echoes of our actions during this last hour, both mentally and physically. Letting yourself remain in that stillness within. Start to find very subtle shifts of the body. Maybe even the mind as we start to come back to motion. Seeing if we can maintain that inner witnessing, that stillness within, as we observe both the world around us moving and also begin to observe the body moving again. Taking your time. When it feels right to you, come into an upright seat. Take your time, again, taking whichever route feels most appropriate for you today. Just remaining aware and observing as you move through it. Come back into a steadiness. Root yourself down into the moment. Staying in that place of stillness. We can observe the phenomenal world, all the changes. There's so many right now. Just remaining detached enough from the world to observe it clearly, and at one with the world enough to care and to act in appropriate ways, to support oneness, to support that wholeness. And then also observing consciousness itself, the movements of our own minds, the movements of our own hearts, the shifting of our feelings, and the way that patterns in our lives strengthen or weaken those thoughts or feelings. Just observing that from just enough distance to have an objective idea of what's going on within. And when we can hold the world and we can hold our own consciousness in our awareness, we fulfill the purpose of being an aware being. Just allow the palms to come together to represent that joining of the outside world and the inner self. And then pull that into your heart center, that essence of our being, that saksi, witnessing consciousness. Turn your gaze inward to symbolize that ever watchful, ever vigilant awareness. And as we hold both the outer world and our inner world together in that wholeness of our essence, we begin to flow with the world. We begin to be able to uplift and affect the world rather than allowing it to affect us. We do this out of service for ourselves and all others, that we might all know our wholeness and our oneness. Lokha samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.